coming to you from the Birchwood Hotel here. I'm now in conversation with NEC member Thoko Didiza, who's been sitting in on the commission, specifically looking at governance issues. We've heard a lot around governance and the need to strengthen it. So most certainly quite a lot, I believe, coming out of that commission. Good afternoon, Ms. Didiza. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good afternoon.
No, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Now, we've heard even from the President in his political overview, he stressed the need now to speedy up this whole program of professionalizing the public sector. The framework exists since 2022. Why it hasn't been implemented in its fullest becomes the question. What are some of the contributions? What are some of the contributions coming out of that commission around the need to now fast-track the implementation of the professionalization of the public sector?
Well, thank you very much. You are correct to say there has been an emphasis from the political report of the President on that matter. But also we feel strongly that in the public service, across the board, whether it's in the local government or provincial or national, we do need to actually ensure that the capacity of the state is such that it is able to deliver the services to our people. That needs skill, that requires professional, behavior, but also capability and understanding of the tasks at hand. So for us having this framework in existence, it's important, but what is more important, it's implementation. And this is what the Commission is actually calling for, that there must be speedy implementation. So while we are assessing the progress, looking at challenges, but this time around, our focus should be what needs to be done next?
There would be contentious elements when discussing the professionalization of the public service because it brings in the whole conversation around cadre deployment, that there would have been perhaps certain volunteers within the African National Congress perhaps hoping at some point to be deployed. So at this point, we've even heard from the president of the political party saying it will be merit-based. You've got to increase and strengthen capacity, meaning that not everybody who serves on the African National Congress would necessarily be top on the line to be considered for a position. It would be on merit. So most certainly one assumes that it would be contentious. Is there an understanding that at this point there can be no deployments when there are no clear skill sets that are displayed by an individual? There will be no comradely type of understanding when being deployed into government?
Well, I do think it's important for us to just go back a little bit, understanding that part of what the ANC's mission has always been about, it's about the liberation of our people, about changing their conditions for the better, and ensuring that in what we do, we serve our people. That means the people you put in the levers of power, the people you put in the administration must be capable to be able to undertake the task at hand. And I think we accept that there might have been lapses, and this is why we say we need to address that issue with the urgency that it deserves. I don't think there will be any controversy among the ANC in actually dealing with the issue of the professionalization of our services.
But how long a period will it take? Because if we look at municipalities, there are a number of consultants that are still being contracted to many municipalities insofar as just getting the books of municipalities right with the finance aspects. So in that instance, one would think if this has been a conversation even as far back as 2022 when the president was outlining the framework, we're now in 2025. So how long a period will it take for the consultants now to finally leave and for the capacity within the municipality to start operating and ensuring that their books balance?
Well, you'll appreciate that, yes, there's a framework, but also there's a legislation that has to be put in place, which is what the Public Service and Administration have been working on. And that legislation has now been tabled in Parliament. And as members of the legislature in Parliament, we will make sure that we address that passing of the legislation with the speed that it deserves. But secondly, that professionalization is going to enable us to create standards where professionals can actually move between spheres of government without necessarily feeling that if I work in a municipality, you know, the conditions of service and other things that go with it may not necessarily be consummate with the other spheres of government. But secondly, it's about being intentional to say, these are the skill sets you require in a municipality. As you correctly put, the issue of accountability in terms of accounting.
Yeah.
Do we have good people who can manage our finances at local level? And therefore, in our recruitment, we need to look at the skill sets that those people have and the capacity that they have in order to do the task.
Now, we cannot talk good governance and not talk about the need to rid many of these institutions, state institutions, of corruption. What has been the sentiment of those gathered in those commissions around finally ridding these institutions of corruption, especially when it comes to procurement processes where a lot of money is being lost? You're seeing that the invoices are being inflated because there's a benefit to officials as well as the service provider. What has been the conversation or some contributions coming from delegates around ridding the state of corruption?
You know, firstly, I think there has been an acknowledgement from the delegates of the efforts that the administration led by the African National Congress has actually been deliberate about addressing those matters. Acknowledging, of course, that we do need in our society, because for me, I think we must not make it a state matter, the issue of corruption. It's a matter that as society we must be able to deal with, because you find it in corporate, you find it in the public sector, you find it in non-government organizations. So what we need to deal with is issues of ethics and integrity in the way we do things, and be able also to deal with issues of the one who's a corrupter and the corruptee, because it takes two to tango. And how do we deal with those issues faster in terms of consequences, such that even those who might have been attempting to do it, it acts as a preventative mechanism.
Now, we know that as the ANC, you've consistently said that you are the leaders of society. So when it speaks to issues of ethics and integrity that you speak of, I suppose many would still look to you to see that the ANC in these conversations is still talking about needing to have a cadre who fully understands that a party is formed to serve the people, and the ethics, the values are all important. So what are the members saying around going back to the values of the ANC of OR Tambo?
For instance, one of the things that you would appreciate, that the ANC, as part of its renewal program, because we've understood that unless we go to the basics, unless we go back to what were our founding principles, our mission and vision, we need to have a similar understanding even with those that might have joined the organization yesterday. So that there is that appreciation, but also there is an appreciation of the responsibility we carry to make sure that the transformation of our society is actually fulfilled. And therefore you require diligence, honesty, integrity, but also commitment, and look at what it is that we need in order to ensure that we are not, you know, looking at these things as though it's ticking the box, but we live it. We are exemplary about what we say needs to be done.
Ms. Didiza, I can see my producer indicating that we have a minute left, but it would be remiss of me not to ask you this. It's quite the talking point. Reports have emerged that it seems as though your name is garnering some level of support for the presidential candidate for perhaps succeeding President Cyril Ramaphosa. What is your take? I'm sure you've seen those reports as well. What is your position at this point? Would you avail yourself for such a position if indeed those who are now starting to lobby were to approach you?
Well, I'm not sure whether those that are lobbying, why are they lobbying? Because in terms of the ANC, we do have a process that we follow. And I would actually say at the moment the matter doesn't even arise. We are concerned about how do we win the elections of local government in order for us to transform our society. That for me is what is uppermost in our minds as an organization and should be uppermost in the minds of our citizens, because at the end of the day, it is that society that will be prosperous, non-sexist, non-racial, and forming the South Africa that we all wanted, that should be our headache at the moment.
A very diplomatic answer from you, but still, if they approached, would you raise your hand? Would you accept?
I don't think it's a diplomatic matter because, as I've said in other fora, that, you know, the ANC and how it has always worked, they would actually look at what are the challenges our society faces today. What are those things that we would want to do to change their lives for the better? And therefore, what is the collective that at a given point you would want to have? So it's not diplomatic. It's just stating the fact of the processes of the organization.
Ms. Didiza, thank you very much for joining us here as the SABC in our makeshift studio. You heard it there for yourself. We attempted, but she has remained a disciplined member of the African National Congress, saying basically the succession conversation has not begun. Their task right now is 2026.